Right, so I did a few pulls for this hooded warrior, Kinro, who is actually just a revival rare recruit. He's not a new character, but after evaluating his abilities, to me it seemed pretty worth it to get this guy, especially since I do not have a single fighter on this account. Unfortunately, it took me a lot of pulls to get him. Still slightly above average in terms of how often you should be getting Kinro. Every 40 pulls on average you should be getting one Kinro. I did about 36, so it still took me quite a while, and definitely beginner luck has started to fall off, because that's more pulls than I did in total to get Ryusui, Zeno, Gen, and Stanley. Like in total to get these guys, it took me 27 pulls and then 36 for Kinro. So in comparison, it is terrible luck, but just in a vacuum, 36 pulls is not bad to get Kinro. Now let me talk about why I actually care about this character. Of course, besides his incredible sprite, which complements the tank Kinro that I have. So at least I already have 2 Kinros on my account, and I just started, so that's pretty fun. Here we got self-allegiance with both Kinros. Now, on my main account, when I started off, I had a Tsukasa, which was available as a revival rare recruit as well, just like this Kinro. And that Tsukasa is one of the best fighters in the game, and I think Kinro is fairly similar in terms of how good he is. He's not the exact same, because he is a single target attacker. I will show you the Tsukasa I'm talking about because I have it on my main account. But let's first discuss Kinro. Now don't look at his skills right now because it doesn't really matter. It does matter, but like it's much different from having him at 0 duplicates. So at max, Kinro's stats is going to be 12,000 HP, 5,000 attack, 2,000 defense, which is good for a fighter unit. So I mean, in terms of like his HP and defense, this is like what you'd see from a tank. Like, it's just that good. The only problem is that all fighter characters in Dr.STONE Battlecraft are gonna have a toughness of weak. All ranged type characters are gonna have a toughness of very weak. All assault type characters are gonna have a toughness of normal, and then tanks, of course, have a toughness of tough, which is, I mean, pretty on the nose, as I said in the previous video. So for a fighter character, acting as a tank really isn't a good idea, because they're going to get constantly knocked back, since they do have a very low resistance to KB with a toughness of weak. Not as bad as ranged characters, but besides like the enemy knocking you back to your base, like having the enemy knock you back also delays your attack quite significantly. So overall, your DPS, your damage per second, is way lower. So for a fighter character, you don't want to really use them as a tank. But regardless, Kinro, he will not like die in like one tap. That's the main point. He will be quite resilient, even though he's not supposed to be used as a tank. So that's pretty good. 5,000 attack. Look at his action speed. He is a fast action speed unit with 5,000 attack. That is incredible, but he is single target attack, right? Now, the Tsukasa I'm talking about at the start of the video, he has very similar stats, but he's an area attacker. So you may think, okay, Tsukasa is much better. The issue is that Tsukasa has an action speed of very slow, whereas Kinro has an action speed of fast. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. They have similar stats. One's a single target attacker that attacks more frequently, and the other is an area attacker that attacks much slower. So you can kind of decide which one's more better. But in my opinion, I think this Kinro is a bit better because he has better skills. Of course, I'll show you guys what he does without any dupes. And he also is a 80 resource character, so he's quite cheap to get out there as soon as the battle starts, and also to upgrade him to level 5 during the battle. His leader skill is also quite exceptional. Fighter type allies are going to get an extra 30% chance of a crit for 10 seconds. A lot of characters, I mean, no matter what team you're running, you want to have at least one character on your team that is going to allow you to hit crits. So having that from a leader skill is a great option. So I'm actually going to this Kinro goes really well on a mono fighter team. So if you're running 3 fighters, this guy is incredible. So very similar to how the Senku from the current event is. You want to be running. Also, I finally got my first dupe of the Senku from reaching 1.5 million points. But I digress. This Senku is kind of similar. You want to run him on a mainly ranged based team, since he does increase range type allies attack by up to 50% when you max him out. Without any dupes, Senku is only 30%. He only gets up to 30% after about 5 hits. So you definitely want to make sure you are getting dupes for the Senku. Initially, I thought he would still get up to 50% without dupes, but it would just take much more hits to actually build that up. But nope, I was completely wrong. Dupes are extremely valuable for this Senku. He also gives crit chance, which, as I said before, is quite valuable. Not because it just gives you more damage, which is nice to have, an extra 1.5x damage if you do hit a crit, but it also gives you a massive amount of points in ranking events. So if you aren't gonna have any boosters, you need to be running at least one character to increase your crit chance. But anyway, so this Senku and Gen are kind of very similar to the Tsukasa and the Kinro. They're kind of the same thing. I mean, Kinro is the Gen to Tsukasa's Senku. I don't know how you say that. I'm trying to think about this right now. Let me think about the relationship between these characters. Yeah, so Kinro is the Gen. Who's Gen? Kinro is the Gen to Senku's Tsukasa. I'll explain what I mean by that in a moment. So we're gonna go over to Tsukasa on my main account, just so you guys can see what I mean. So as we know, Gen is kind of like an area attacker, very similar to Tsukasa, once again with a very slow action speed. This Tsukasa, as you can see, the stats are quite similar to what Kinro's will be. Kinro's is also a bit higher in terms of his attack and defense, so another point for Kinro there. But yeah, he has very slow action speed, also very slow movement speed, which you do have to consider. Kinro has a very fast, well, I think fast as well. So Kinro, yeah, it's looking very good for Kinro, yeah. But yeah, he's very similar to how Gen is. So when it comes to a mono fighter team, which is just running fighter units as our offensive characters, or just running ranged as our offensive characters, this guy is very similar to Gen. But as I said before, his skills are much worse than Kinro's. I mean, I haven't gone through Kinro's skills yet, but just take a look here. His skill 1 is going to give you a 5% crit chance increase for all fighter characters, not for all characters, period. Which is not bad. Like, fighter crit chance is never a bad thing, but 5% is quite underwhelming. I understand why it's a low percentage, because it is to all characters, but at that point, just make it to fighter characters and then increase the percentage, because I mean, crit chance doesn't really matter too much for tanks, and of course support characters don't even attack, so it doesn't really matter for them either. But either way, this character is still not bad. 5% is still, like, it is enough, because in a ranking event match, with a 5% chance of a crit, you should still be reaching the maximum amount of points that you can get for reaching them, I think 5 crits. So over one entire battle, 5% chance should be enough to hit at least 5 crits. So when it comes to points in ranking events, this is enough, but it's really not going to help too much in terms of damage. Then he's also going to increase fighter type ally action speed by 3% only. Like, what is this? So now we're saying, okay, it's only fighters, but it's still an exceptionally low percentage. So Tsukasa, I don't know what he's up with his actions, with his skills. It's terrible. His leader skill as well is kind of just whatever. It's a fighter type ally attack increase, but I mean, there's so many different characters that increase all allies attack, not just fighters, and I think crit chance from Kinro is much more valuable, especially since it's a 30% chance from his leader skill instead of Tsukasa's 5%. So let's go back over to Kinro, and then I can finally decide, was it worth getting Kinro in 36 pools? So yeah, just so you guys can see what I mean about Gen and Tsukasa being quite similar. Here we have Gen, who is a area attacker with a very slow action speed. Pretty good stats for an area attacker, especially for ranged, and I don't even have him close to being maxed. He still needs rank 5 and also level 100. But his skills are exceptional. 15% action speed for ranged, which is like compared to the 3% from Tsukasa. It's exactly the same skill for his category, which is ranged instead of Tsukasa's fighter. He gives an action speed increase, which is also what Tsukasa does, but instead of 3%, it's 15%. So it's much better. And then he also makes range type opponents' attacks weaker by 12%, which is a bit more niche. Most of the ranged attackers aren't really that much of a threat anyways. If this was for fighter, which is like the main lion enemies in all events, like those are the biggest threats. So if you see a character that decreases fighter type enemy attack, then those units are quite valuable. Range type opponents, it still has value, but just not as much. But I mean, for instance, in the current event, the final boss Senku, he hides behind the lion and he does a lot of damage, so this kind of a character does help quite a bit in this kind of event. But I'm not sure about the value in terms of the second skill going forward. But yeah, I'm getting a bit off topic. So this Kinro, his skills without any dupes is going to give a fighter type ally attack increase of 16% flat. Exceptional. Fighter type ally movement speed increase of 8%. Not so important, but I mean, I've grown to appreciate movement speed a lot more when it comes to characters. I used to think it was quite negligible, but considering how the enemy can just completely annihilate you by pushing you further back towards your base, having your characters as far out as possible in as little time as possible is quite important. So having movement speed, sending your troops out, getting them as close to the enemy's base right at the start is quite important. So very fast movement speed from Kinro, in addition to his exceptional skills, is going to make him quite powerful. So I think his skill 1 is incredibly valuable. Skill 2 also has its uses, and the multipliers are pretty good for 0 duplicates. His leader skill is great, his stats are exceptional, even better than Tsukasa's. His movement speed is very fast, his action speed is fast. Yes, his toughness is weak, and he is a single target attacker, but I think the pros outweigh the cons here. And in my opinion, I do think this character is worth the pulls. It does hurt to see my gems at only about 9,660, but I've barely touched the story mode. I'm only on chapter 10. I still have like another 21 or another 11 chapters to go, so I'll be getting a lot more gems, free gems. I'll get gems from ranking event reward for top 50, which is what I'll be going for. So I think this guy is a great start to a mono fighter team. Until I have another 2 decent fighters, I don't think this guy will see as much value. But the second I have a full fighter team of 3 characters with a tank or 2 tanks and a support character, I think that team will do exceptionally. So currently we're building up our fighter mono team. We can ignore Yo, he's a trash character. I mean, I could use Yo just for his knockback chance, but in terms of dealing damage, he's not going to do much. And then also our range team is starting to shape up. I actually also got this Gen from the ranking event ticket. Now he's not bad. He is a enemy attack reducer, only 2%, so it's trash. But of course you're going to be seeing a lot of dupes for this character since he is a part of the premium recruit, the standard pool. But the main point is that he is a freeze chance increase of 7%, and he's an area attacker. So I do think this character could be used in just as a sort of a buffer on my team right now until I get a decent ranged character to replace him. Freeze chance is always nice to have, especially with an area attacker. It means all the enemies will get frozen at once. Exceptional. So I mean, that's where I'm standing right now. I also have 2 assault type units, so I mean, I almost have a mono team for each type here, which is great. We just need a decent tank, which is probably going to be the next thing I pull for. Whenever, hopefully next month, we get a good arrival tank, because this month we got nothing, not a single tank type character in the premium in any of the banners. Not as a revival, not as an arrival. So we should be seeing at least 1 good tank next month, but we'll see how that shapes up. But for now, I'm quite happy with my pulls. It's a bit of cope, but it is what it is. 36 pulls for 1 SSR, but it was Kinro in the end. That could have been a premium recruit character, a standard pull unit, but it wasn't. So if I had to go through all my gyms and I still didn't get Kinro, I might have quit this account. Like, I'm actually being serious. Like, you can't do like 60 pulls and not get a single Kinro. Like, on a new account, like, that's devastating. But 36 for 1 Kinro, I think that's actually a steal, especially since this character is so good. I mean, usually I don't like to pull on revival recruits, but this guy, after analyzing him, he's just an incredible asset. But for now, I'm just gonna avoid these. You see, I was saying I want to use Gen as a buffer until I get a better ranged character, and we do have this Gen here. Unfortunately, I don't think he's that good. Like, yes, he increases his attack by 100% without any dupes, so he's about 4,000 attack. But like most ranged characters, they have 4,000 attack without using their skills, but you're wasting a whole skill just to get your attack stat to where most other ranged characters already are. So it's a bit counterproductive. They just wanted to make his attack stat 2025 because of him being the 2025 New Year's character. So he's a year old. He's not even that good either. 4,000 attack with a slow action speed, it's just not good. Yes, he does have freeze trance, but he's only a single target attacker, and this trance is way low without dupes. So yeah, this Gen is not worth going for. Hopefully we get a decent ranged character and a decent tank unit next month. But until then, I'm just going to prepare by getting as many gems as possible. But that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Make sure to like, subscribe. Peace, and I'm out.